Well, Talion, I mean it just like it sounded. You need to be balanced out. Look, Talion, you have a great number of abilities. All of them are exceptionally powerful and exceptionally useful. So, what you need now is to learn to utilize those abilities at their maximum effect in the most efficient way that you possibly can. But the one area you're lackluster in is basically head-to-head confrontation. You might be physically strong against most low or mid-rank demons, even as a kid, but that boost to physical strength won't do you any good against hardened soldiers who are trained to deal with enemies, even ones that are stronger than they are, in a physical sense. So, you need weapons training, combat training. You need to learn how to utilize your physical strength, do it effectively, and strike your opponents well. Defend yourself against weapon attacks, which you're not going to do with your bare hands. As strong as you are, kid, you're not sword-proof. You may be more durable, even more hard to cut, but a strong demon will be able to kill you. Swords are something you're going to have to deal with, so you're going to need a weapon of your own to counter, and training to know how to do it. So, that's what the first step in this training is. Both of you are going to create a weapon, specifically a sword. Both of you are going to be using creation magic. The power in creation magic is the ability to create any object, giving it physical state and form, turning demonic energy into a physical object that you can interact with. A shield to defend, a weapon to attack, basically anything that you can picture or imagine. Talion, you'll of course be using your seal magic to accomplish the task. For this, I want you to place a seal for the creation magic spell that you're going to be using on your hand. This will allow you to create a sword. Rico is going to do the same thing, but since it's her natural category and she isn't a seals mage, she won't be requiring the seal. Listen closely, Talion. This new seals magic style that you've created of putting the seal on your body, it's useful, no doubt. But currently, there's still a weak point. The seal. That's the weak point. The spot that, makes it all fall apart. What? I don't get it. How does the seal that make the magic possible become a weak point? Well, it's simple, Talion. You're able to cast the spell by writing the seal on your body, right? Yeah, Talion replied. So, tell me, Talion, what do you think happens if they wipe that seal off? What happens if they soak you with water and the seal washes away? What happens if you go for a roll in the dirt and it gets scuffed? Currently, the weakness in your seal's magic is that seal can be wiped away. If it's disturbed, so too is the magic that you're producing disturbed. So you're going to have to work keeping that seal clean, safe, and intact into your combat. Think of it as a vital point, protected at all costs. Make sure that you don't lose your seal. Okay, I got you. I understand. So if I lose the seal, the magic goes away. So I have to protect it. Make sure I don't smudge it on or anything, or it doesn't get washed away. Otherwise, my sword goes away. Correct. At that point, Salus once again summoned a blade by calling the fog out of his body and gathering it into the shape of a sword. He then began to carve the symbols into the ground, everything that was needed to produce the seal for casting the creation spell of making a sword. Talion, of course, drew this on the back of his hand. while Rico just tried to commit it to memory. Okay, you two have it, right? Yes. Yes, Rico have. Both of them replied. Okay, so, test run number 1. I want both of you to go ahead and visualize a sword. Don't get over ostentatious with it. Picture something basic, something that you feel comfortable holding, something that you can wield effectively. You're going to be using these during your training, so try to picture something that works for you. Remember, this is a spell. It's not a fixed object. It doesn't have to be the same every time. If you create a sword, but the sword isn't working for you, if it's too big, too heavy, or it feels too light, regardless of what the problems are with it, it's a spell, not a physical object, meaning you can rework it however you want. Desummon the sword and then summon it again. But the next time you do, fix the problem. Using this method, each of you can create a sword that's perfect for your use, that fits both your combat style, physical strength, and abilities, and should help you be maximum when it comes to your effectiveness in close-range combat. We'll talk about the next stage in training once you've got a sword that you feel comfortable with. So, give it a try, Salas said, staring at Rico and Taleon. They passed each other looks for a moment. Rico sat thinking about it for a second, whilst Taleon immediately visualized the sword that he had done a small amount of training with before meeting Salas. As he extended his hand and focused the demonic energy, trying to picture the sword that he had trained with, there was a flow of silvery energy. As silvery sparkles began to solidify in front of him, first they seemed like nothing but light, but almost as if it was an illusion, like the dragon before, that was forming itself. Eventually, it created a solid blade that no longer glowed with silver light, simply appearing to be a regular physical sword. After summoning it, it simply fell to the ground. "Whoa, was that supposed to happen?" Taleon said, as the sword fell to the ground. Yes, Taleon. Creation magic allows you to create an object, but it's up to you to control that object. You should have gripped the hilt before it got finished forming. Once you create it, it's bound by the laws that you created it in. You gave no intent or focus to creating a sword that could float, so the sword doesn't move on its own accord. It's a regular sword because a regular sword is what you imagined. If you wanted to make the sword special or magical in some way, that would require more energy and a different sigil with new things added into it in order to add the function of floating or moving about on its own. So, pick up the sword and swing it around a bit. Just be careful not to hit Rico. In fact, give yourself some space. You're too close together, Salas said, waving them apart, directing Taleon to go stand several paces away. The sword that Taleon had summoned, created for himself, was a near-perfect duplicate of the one that he was training with. However, the sword that he created was in better condition, without all the scuffs and scrapes, much more pristine. As he looked over to see Rico, she still seemed to be thinking. Does Rico have to make sword?" Rico said, looking over to Salas. A sword is just a basic weapon. Technically, you're a creation magic specialist. You can make whatever you want. I suggested a sword because we need both of you to train in close-range combat. If you've got something else that might work, then by all means go for it, so long as it's functional. Okay, Rico thinks she has idea. Rico said as she extended her hands outward, both of them reaching out as she closed her eyes and began to focus, that light blue glow beginning to pick up around her, much more subtle than Talion's. And as the glow reached its pinnacle, it began to fade away, but not to no effect, as, in the moment, long metallic blades seemed to coat Rico's fingers, wrapping around them, as if she was wearing metallic gloves of some kind, each finger affixed with a very long blade, and all of them seemed to be bound together with small chains. Salus looked rather surprised as she summoned it. "Well, that's an interesting choice," he said, looking over to Rico. "I didn't think you'd know what that weapon was, let alone how to summon one." "Yes, Rico's mother used to use. She found. When Mother died, Rico thought about take. But Mother liked them very much, so Rico thought she'd keep. Rest with, forever. But now Rico make her own," she said, with a big smile on her face as always.